What's up everyone, Darcblade here with the next episode in our Agents of Overwatch series, where we take a look at the heroes in the game, going over their lore, abilities, pros and cons and more. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at the former Omnic death machine, Bastion. Bastion units were once the frontline combatants during the Omnic crisis. They were originally created for peacekeeping purposes, but during the crisis they were turned against their human makers, forming the bulk of the Omnic army. Following the end of the crisis, humanity destroyed or disassembled almost all Bastion units, as they symbolise the horrors of the conflict. There is though a unique Bastion unit. Having been severely damaged in its final battles of the war, it was left forgotten for over a decade. In its dormant state, it was exposed to nature and all her elements. As it rusted away, nature began to claim it, as it became overgrown with vines, roots, and nests of small animals. However, on one fateful day, for an unexplained reason, Bastion reactivated, but its combat program was all but lost. Bastion instead had an intense curiosity about nature and all its inhabitants. This inquisitive Bastion unit then set out to explore the world and discover its purpose. Although Bastion appears to be gentle, described as even harmless at times, its core combat programming will take over if it senses danger. It will then utilise its entire arsenal to eliminate anything it sees as a threat. This has led to incidences of conflict with the few humans it has encountered, and thus Bastion tries to avoid populated areas in favour of the wild. Now moving on to look at the weapons and abilities Bastion wields. Bastion is a 1-star difficulty defense hero. It has 200 health with 100 armor, for a total of 300 health. Bastion is unique in it can transform between different configurations, but generally Bastion is a slow moving hero. Bastion's default configuration is Recon. While in this configuration, Bastion will be able to freely move. It will be outfitted with a submachine gun in this form. The weapon deals moderate damage over a medium distance. The damage can be 20 depending on your distance from the target, while its rate of fire is 8 rounds per second. Unfortunately though, the magazine size for the submachine gun is 20, so it's quite low. While Recon configuration has medium ratings all round, it is best used to get into positions to utilise Bastion's other configurations. Bastion's second and most infamous configuration is its sentry configuration. Whilst Bastion is not able to move, it can still aim freely. When it transforms, it becomes into a stationary sentry turret. Now it will lose all ability to freely move, but become a Gatling gun capable of tearing through any foe. The damage can be up to 15 depending on your distance from the target, and it fires 35 rounds per second. Its clip size now is increased to 200. Finding the right position to set up sentry mode is key to success with this configuration. If you do manage to find a sweet spot where long range foes cannot freely shoot at you and you can still defend an area, then Bastion will be a nightmare to remove. While in sentry mode, Bastion's crit spot changes. It is now moved to the blue glowing power box on his back. Hitting this will deal double damage to Bastion, so it's good to be aware of this when confronting one. Next is Reconfigure. This is still classed as an ability, but it is basically the function that allows you to change between configuration Recon and configuration Sentry. The transformation is not instant and will take 1.5 seconds to go into Sentry and 0.5 seconds to go into Recon. Reconfigure does not come with a cooldown, so you can change quickly and often depending if the battle needs it. It should also be noted that when reconfiguring between forms, it will automatically reload your weapon. Bastion also comes with the ability to self-repair itself. When the ability is held down, Bastion changes its arm into a welding tool and heals itself for 75 health per second. This can also be done in any configuration that Bastion is in. However, using this ability will immobilize Bastion while the button is held. Bastion's ultimate ability is Configuration Tank. When activated, Bastion will transform into a tank along with a devastating cannon attached. He will maintain his maneuverability and gain a further 150 points of armor. The cannon it wields deals 205 damage per shot, enough to fell most foes in a shot or two. Also, the shots cause an explosion over a 4-meter blast radius. Unfortunately, Configuration Tank has a time limit. It lasts 8 seconds, and as a result of the slow rate of fire means that Bastion can only get off 6 or 7 shots per ultimate. You will know when an enemy Bastion has activated his ultimate by it playing. The same goes for when an ally Bastion uses it, albeit a little bit quieter. A small tip when in tank configuration is that to the left of Bastion's HUD will be an indicator showing how much time you have left till your ultimate runs out. Also, Bastion's ultimate will not harm him if he's caught in the blast radius. With this in mind as well, you can shoot directly at Bastion's feet when in tank configuration to boost yourself up into the air. You can use this to traverse difficult terrain or get the drop on opponents. Bastion has one achievement and trophy tied to configuration tank. It's called Charge and requires you to get 4 kills in a single use of his ultimate. Not too hard as long as you're lucky and the enemy is clumped up. The other achievement and trophy is Triple Threat. This involves all 3 of Bastion's configurations. It requires you to get 2 kills in Recon, 2 kills in Sentry and 2 kills in tank configuration. Again, not too tough, you just need to be careful for when you're going for Recon kills, as you don't have the firepower the other 2 configurations have. While every character can take on every other character on the game, there are some matchups that are clearly in a certain character's favour. Bastion is one of the only heroes who is potentially good against every other single hero. He can easily rip apart with his Sentry mode any foe that comes into close or medium ranges with it. However, there are opponents who can deal with Bastion. First is Genji. A smart Genji can easily deflect your bullets back at you, killing you in seconds if you're in Sentry form. With this in mind, if a Genji approaches you, try to bait out his deflect. You will know this when the blade slashes disappear in front of him. Next is Hanzo and Widowmaker. These both can take down Bastion at long ranges, as Bastion is slow or immobile. Also, Bastion's configuration are not the best at fighting at long ranges. Next is Roadhog. His chain hook ability can pull you out of Sentry configuration and back into Recon, leaving Bastion vulnerable and out of position. And lastly, there is Tracer, who can easily flank Bastion and get the upper hand. Of course, players' skill should always be taken into account. Just because a hero should easily beat another hero on paper does not mean it will always be that way during a match. Anyway, the pros for Bastion are as follows. Firstly, he deals high amounts of damage in tank and Sentry configurations. Next, he has decent health and armor. Next, he is great for dealing with tanks. He is also great at defending positions. However, Bastion's cons is that he's slow and even immobile at times. And Bastion really does rely on good positioning. The design of Bastion can be compared to that of maybe a Transformer in a way. The fact that Bastion has 3 forms reminds me of the triple changes from that franchise. Bastion's love for nature could also be compared to the C-16 android from Dragon Ball Z. Bastion's switch from War Machine to Nature Lover is heartwarming from a story point of view. During matches he will beep and chirp with other Overwatch heroes, and despite not saying a word, we can understand it and its motives. Overall, Bastion can be a powerhouse of a damage dealer. When an inexperienced team comes up against a Bastion, it can be slaughtered. As players learn the characters, they will know that Bastion sometimes needs to be countered with the right heroes. When you are playing as Bastion, try to find decent points to set up your Sentry configuration. Somewhere that will stop long range players from sniping you but still give you a view of a choke point or objective point. It is also advisable to try to find more than one spot, as if you keep killing opponents, they will know where you're set up. With that in mind, after a few kills, try to think about relocating to confuse your opponents. Also, Bastion has the bonus of being able to self-heal, so he doesn't always have to rely on healers being close to him. Bastion can really tear foes apart, and despite being a nature-loving Omnic, he can cause despair on the battlefield still. Anyway, I've been Darcblade, bringing you my Agents of Overwatch guide to Bastion. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.